Dinar Shift. We begin tonight with a truly extraordinary situation unfolding across the global financial landscape, a moment that has sparked an intense, synchronized surge of attention within the specialized communities monitoring the Iraqi dinar. The speculative excitement currently rippling through these networks is unlike anything seen in recent history. We are talking about the reported culmination of years of anticipation, suggesting that the long-discussed currency revaluation event may be moving from theory to a live operational phase right now. The air in these circles is thick with a sense of potentially life-altering transition, fueled by what is being described as visible movement within high-level banking channels. The most compelling, though unverified, reports suggest that a new rate associated with the Iraqi dinar has begun to surface on internal, non-public banking screens, an alleged development that, if confirmed, would represent a historic shift for both the nation of Iraq and currency holders worldwide. We will meticulously break down the details of this developing narrative, examining the claims about where this activity is supposedly originating and what it might signify for the thousands of people who have been following this story for over a decade. The catalyst for this evening's fever pitch is an electrifying phrase: "System go live, IQD rate active," a cryptic message that reportedly erupted almost simultaneously across numerous private digital communication platforms. These platforms, ranging from encrypted chat forums to invitation-only discussion groups focused on global currency speculation, are now a hub of intense, round-the-clock activity. The coordinated nature of this chatter is what lends it a unique weight in the context of previous, more sporadic rumors. It has triggered an immediate and profound reaction, as participants debate whether this signifies real-world financial action or is simply a highly organized wave of wishful thinking. The narrative being propagated is that this messaging originated from multiple, seemingly unconnected points in both the United States and the Middle East, regions considered pivotal to any large-scale international financial adjustment. The sheer volume and consistency of this unconfirmed reporting have elevated the current atmosphere far beyond a typical speculative flurry. Further compounding the sense of urgency is the detailed, albeit fictional, narrative circulating that several Tier 1 financial institutions are involved. In this speculative story, major international banks, whose names are frequently referenced in these discussions, are said to be the first to display the placeholder figures associated with a new exchange rate for the Iraqi dinar on their internal foreign exchange systems. While this story provides no official source, it creates a vivid image of back-end systems humming with activity. The fictional account suggests that the Central Bank of Iraq has purportedly initiated a quiet transmission of preliminary rate indicators to downstream banking partners for system testing and integration. This description paints a picture of intricate preparations behind the scenes, where global financial infrastructures are being theoretically aligned and prepared for a monumental event. It suggests that the immense unseen mechanism of international finance is undergoing a preparatory shift in anticipation of the long-foretold revaluation. The most dramatic aspect of this evolving storyline is the alleged visibility of a specific, theoretical exchange figure. The circulating, unconfirmed reports have zeroed in on a supposed new rate for the Iraqi dinar said to be appearing on certain internal bank test screens. This elusive number, the one supposedly watched for by the global community of currency watchers, is being placed in the high $3 range within this fictional context. This detail has galvanized the speculative community, leading to the circulation of ambiguous screenshots and whispered tips across private message boards, where analysts, traders, and long-term observers are intensely poring over every unverifiable data point. It is a moment of high tension and suspense, with every circulating figure being subjected to immediate, frantic analysis by individuals deeply invested in the narrative of a coming shift. To add a layer of fictionalized international authority, the circulating story includes an alleged foreign exchange analyst based in Dubai, who is quoted as lending credence to the numbers being discussed. This purported analyst is claimed to have referenced a specific figure, a value of $3.62, which was supposedly discussed in confidential private conversations weeks earlier. The inclusion of this detail is designed to imply that the rates now surfacing align perfectly with previously rumored high-level targets, suggesting a coordinated execution rather than a random fluctuation. Furthermore, the fictional narrative incorporates Vietnamese Dong, claiming it is also undergoing a parallel tuning process via imaginary SWIFT and quantum financial system channels. This inclusion aims to broaden the perceived scope of the event, transforming it from a localized currency adjustment into a synchronized, global monetary reset that has long been anticipated in these specialized forums. The fictional narrative amplifies the idea that this represents the first tangible, visible movement in the dinar's value since 2014, imbuing the moment with a profound sense of historical significance for those following the story. Within the context of this speculative account, the supposed shifts are being interpreted by observers as the early tremors of a major financial occurrence, a pivotal moment that transcends mere monetary reform. This is PR, assented not as a typical market rumor, but as a sign of an impending economic transformation of immense magnitude. The story is carefully constructed to create a high-stakes scenario where every flicker on a bank screen is seen as confirming a long-held belief, elevating the drama to a global scale, despite the lack of verified economic fact underpinning the claims. The drama of this fictional scenario is further enhanced by stepping back to detail, the meticulous historical preparation that Iraq has supposedly undergone. The narrative describes a nation that has spent years laying the groundwork for this transformative currency event. This includes implementing significant monetary reforms, undertaking a phased stabilization of its domestic financial system, and gradually adopting international regulatory standards and expectations. This historical backdrop is designed to make the current fictional developments feel not random, but monumental and inevitable, the final step in a multi-year project of national recovery and financial restructuring that has been unfolding with careful precision. Within this overarching storyline, the Central Bank of Iraq is credited with extensive ushers aimed at digital modernization and financial integration. The imagined efforts include integrating new financial technologies and significantly expanding the reach of digital banking services across the nation, all supposedly in fulfillment of hypothetical preconditions set forth by international bodies like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. The story posits that these actions represent a deliberate strategy to bring Iraq's financial infrastructure fully into the modern global system, signaling a readiness to operate under new, stricter international economic protocols. This deep-seated preparation serves as a narrative anchor, suggesting that the nation has done all the necessary technical and structural work. The tale continues by attributing to Iraq a massive fictional growth in its foreign exchange reserves, here imagined to have surpassed a figure of $120 billion. This immense figure is used to suggest that the nation possesses the necessary fiscal strength and buffer to underpin a major currency adjustment without risking instability. Furthermore, the narrative highlights a supposed strategic diversification away from cash-based trade, framing this as a deliberate prerequisite for a future revaluation. These claims reinforce the story's theme of national preparedness and economic maturity, suggesting that the Iraqi government has strategically positioned its economy to absorb the impacts of such a large-scale monetary change, a key element of the speculative anticipation. Reinforcing this sense of economic readiness, the fictional account invokes rising oil revenues and references a future national budget that is purportedly denominated entirely in Iraqi dinars. This specific detail, while not corresponding to any major, confirmed policy announcement in reality, is deployed purely for storytelling effect to signal a definitive commitment to the national currency. The narrator frames all of these complex, interwoven elements, the reforms, the reserves, the digital shifts, as pieces of a grand, meticulously planned strategy. This perspective cultivates an atmosphere of historical significance and perceived inevitability, suggesting that the dramatic moment of revaluation is simply the destined culmination of years of financial groundwork. Moving to the ground-level reactions, the narrative portrays Baghdad as a city subtly alive, with signs that something extraordinary is unfolding behind the closed doors of its financial centers. It vividly imagines scenes of late-night activity at the Central Bank of Iraq, where the office windows remain brightly illuminated well past normal working hours, and an increased presence of security personnel suggests high-stakes operational movement. The story invents a moment where an unnamed staffer supposedly tells reporters that teams are working diligently to finalize the reconciliation of international accounts before midnight, a dramatic detail crafted to imply intricate, sensitive, and time-bound financial operations are in progress at the highest level. Further deepening the drama in this fictional tale, the narrative describes ATMs in Baghdad's central districts flickering offline for brief software updates. These momentary outages are portrayed not as routine maintenance, but as symbolic precursors to a large-scale coordinated monetary adjustment, reinforcing the idea of a silent systemic shift. Local news stations are also described as airing vague segments about a new economic era, employing language that, within the logic of this speculative world, is interpreted by observers as coded hints designed to mentally prepare the public for an impending currency announcement. All these descriptive elements work in concert to create an image of coordinated national movement and quiet, urgent acceleration, as if the entire country's financial infrastructure were subtly shifting into a new, historic gear. The paragraph focuses intently on amplifying the atmosphere of tension and pervasive expectancy in Iraq, giving the listener the sense of being on the very threshold of a momentous transformative shift. The descriptive details create a powerful, immersive image of a nation holding its breath, waiting for the sound of a starting gun that will signal the end of a long period of economic hardship. This portrayal of synchronized activity, from the central bank to the street-level ATMs, is designed to suggest an event too large and coordinated to be merely a rumor, positioning the entire country as a protagonist in a grand financial saga, even though the events remain purely within the realm of speculative fiction. The focus of this fictional narrative then shifts back across the globe to the United States, where major financial institutions are portrayed as quietly mobilizing for an imminent yet publicly unspoken event. The story introduces the concept of alleged internal memos supposedly circulated within specific Tier 1 banking institutions. These memos are claimed to be placing local branches on a status of quiet standby, a carefully chosen phrase intended to evoke images of operational teams waiting alertly just below the surface of public visibility, prepared to execute an undisclosed protocol. This creates a powerful sense of covert coordination at the highest levels of global banking. In this ongoing tale, some bank customers are said to be reporting brief online system refresh notifications, which the narrative frames as potential foreign exchange table updates being implemented in real time. To lend credibility to this fictional back-end activity, a former bank executive is quoted offering a technical explanation suggesting that these synchronized system flashes are indicative of new rate feeds being imported from central exchange partners. While these claims are entirely imaginary, they skillfully contribute to the escalating tensai of the story, painting a picture in which every element of the global financial system, banks, customers, and insiders, is feeling the tremors of a significant, imminent change beneath the surface. The paragraph dramatically concludes with an assertion that, within the context of this fictional world, politics is no longer the bottleneck, and that only timing remains. This assertion serves a dual purpose. It heightens the suspense to a fever pitch, suggesting that all administrative hurdles have been cleared, while simultaneously reinforcing the story's fictional high-drama nature. Through the accumulation of these unverified details, the narrative closes this section with a sense of breathless anticipation, leaving the audience with the powerful impression of standing at the very precipice of a global financial shift that is set entirely within the speculative, creative framework of the story being told. A central theme woven into this fictional narrative is the psychology surrounding the community's long-anticipated final moment, a concept that represents far more than a simple monetary shift. It symbolizes a deeply emotional journey spanning years of anticipation, moments of intense disappointment, cycles of renewed hope, and relentless, shared analysis among countless individuals. For over a decade, participants in various forums and private investment groups have repeatedly navigated the emotional extremes of believing the breakthrough was imminent, only to be met by delays, contradictory statements, or official governmental denials, forging a unique and resilient communal spirit that balances sharp skepticism with an abiding, persistent optimism. In the world of this story, the atmosphere tonight is framed as electric, charged with a level of clarity and alignment rarely felt before in this long-running saga. The host asserts that a convergence of 5 symbolic indicators, CBI readiness, IMF acknowledgement, digital integration, rate visibility, and bank-side activation, are for the first time all pointing in the same direction. These 5 green lights are likened to a meticulously followed rocket launch protocol, where no single system can show a hint of red before the sequence for ignition is given. The analogy amplifies the sense of coordinated precision, suggesting that technicians, systems, and global linkages are all finally harmonizing. After years of careful structural calibration, moving from a preparatory phase into an active execution phase, this imagined moment suggests that the community is not merely reacting to another hopeful whisper or fleeting rumor, but is witnessing the tangible culmination of long-term structural and procedural preparation. The energy of this night within the narrative is presented as stemming not from wishful thinking, but from a convergence of systemic and circumstantial signs that appear more cohesive and undeniable than ever before in the fictional history of this event. This focus on procedural cohesion and the removal of conflicting indicators is a narrative device used to validate the perseverance of the audience, positioning the current activity as the inevitable outcome of a deeply complex, deliberate process that has finally reached its fictional tipping point. As the fictional broadcast transitions into a more analytical tone, the host introduces a series of 3 expert commentaries, each representing a different region and perspective, designed to reinforce the story's theme of global coordination. Dr. Mahi al-Rubai, a fictional economist from Baghdad, is present. Ed as offering commentary that frames the supposed adjustment as Iraq's definitive emergence onto the world stage. His perspective suggests that the currency is finally moving into alignment with real global market dynamics after years of structural reform, emphasizing a focus on economic maturity, stability, and the future prospect of a floating exchange model to deepen the story's sense of procedural legitimacy. The second fictional expert, Jason Miller, a supposed former U.S. Treasury analyst, frames the moment as the long-awaited execution phase of a multi-year, compliance-driven roadmap. His fictional comments hint that the dramatic changes unfolding tonight have been in motion for a substantial period, lending the narrative a tone of technical validation and procedural gravitas, suggesting the event is rooted in intergovernmental agreements and long-term planning. Finally, Dr. Le Mai, a fictional Vietnamese economist, provides a regional dimension by suggesting that Vietnam's own reforms were thoughtfully timed alongside Iraq's, crafting a fictional backdrop of synchronized regional monetary alignment and cooperation, further adding to the perceived global scale of the event. Collectively, these expert voices, though imaginary, are designed to create a chorus of unwavering confidence, each reinforcing the central idea that the moment unfolding is not confined to one nation but is part of a broader, interlinked financial transformation. The fictional narrative strategically uses these commentaries to frame the event as a comprehensive global monetary reset rather than a localized, isolated currency adjustment. This narrative choice adds layers of complexity, drama, and interconnectedness to the evolving story, coring the fictional magnitude of the moment by weaving together diverse regional perspectives into a single cohesive account of impending change. The narrative continues by inviting the audience to vividly imagine the dawn of a new financial era, painting a detailed picture of what the next morning would look like within this fictional world. The host urges the imaginary audience to visualize logging into their digital banking platforms and seeing figures that were once distant, speculative aspirations now presented as tangible, confirmed, and updated values. This imagined transformation is portrayed not merely as a personal windfall for individual currency holders, but as a powerful catalyst for widespread positive change across Iraq's entire economic landscape, marking the culmination of the nation's long road to recovery and modernization. The paragraph outlines a hopeful, fictional vision of Iraq stepping into a period of renewed prosperity, characterized by a massive influx of foreign investment, aggressive infrastructure expansion, and a renewed, robust engagement on the global stage. The story suggests that Iraq will rapidly become a hub for major energy projects, technology partnerships, and large-scale industrial collaboration, all fueled by returning global confidence and capital flowing back into the nation's economy. These fictional possibilities are crafted to evoke a sense of sweeping hope and significant transition, not just for the international audience, but for the Iraqi people whose nation is, in this narrative, poised to reclaim its economic independence and strength, securing its place as a stable regional player. By framing this shift as an era defined by opportunity, innovation, and stability, the host underscores that the imagined revaluation is not simply about the creation of personal wealth, but represents a collective rejuvenation of national pride and global relevance. This creative portrayal allows the audience to step momentarily into a world where a long-awaited policy change blossoms into widespread prosperity and a national renaissance. The host emphasizes the non-financial moral dimension of this change, suggesting it symbolizes a return to global stature, a crucial narrative point for those who have followed the story with deep emotional investment for years. The narrative then deliberately shifts into an inspiratio motivational tone, specifically acknowledging the emotional endurance of those who have followed this storyline's unfolding events over the many intervening years. The host speaks directly to the imaginary audience, emphasizing that each long-term observer has weathered periods of intense uncertainty, external skepticism, and numerous moments where walking away from the entire saga might have seemed the easier, more rational choice. This acknowledgement is designed to build a strong rapport and sense of shared experience with the audience. The fictional narrative frames the audience's persistence as a true testament to character, describing their continued commitment as the distinguishing trait that separates passive dreamers from active believers who are willing to stake their hopes on a vision of future transformation. This moment is utilized to highlight the universal, resonant theme of resilience, underscoring the idea that truly major rewards and historical moments are often reserved only for those who possess the fortitude to continue moving forward, despite persistent delays, repeated challenges, and the constant friction of widespread doubt and criticism from the outset. The world. This section becomes a motivational reflection, asserting that the individuals tuning in tonight are, in the context of the fictional world being created, on the verge of witnessing a powerful personal validation of their unyielding perseverance. At the very edge of a historical turning point. The encouragement serves to deepen the emotional resonance of the story, reinforcing the idea that the journey has always been about much more than a financial transaction. It has been a profound test of patience, discipline, and unwavering belief in an eventual outcome. The host's building tone seeks to empower the audience, encouraging them to view themselves as central protagonists in a broader saga of endurance and eventual historic triumph. The final section of the story approaches the event from a practical angle, laying out a fictionalized checklist designed for imaginary participants preparing for the envisioned exchange process. The host encourages individuals to maintain meticulous organization of their physical currency, sorting it carefully by denomination, a specific instruction that, though not reflecting actual necessary procedures, adds a tangible sense of realism and structured expectation to the internal logic of the narrative. This small detail grounds the excitement in a sense of necessary preparation and formality. The imaginary participants are further advised to have two valid forms of identification readily available, a detail that reinforces the notion that the upcoming transition will involve formal, structured, high-security protocols typically associated with major financial transactions. Crucially, the narrative issues a strong warning against hastily signing any contracts, non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, or complex legal agreements. It urges the audience to take their time, review all terms with extreme care, and consult with independent, qualified professionals if necessary, emphasizing that discipline and caution are essential even in moments of intense emotional excitement and anticipation. The paragraph also strongly encourages the fictional audience to remain vigilant for official communications emanating solely from their banks and to strictly avoid sharing any sensitive appointment details or personal information online, weaving in a necessary element of operational seriousness and security awareness. Ultimately, the narrative stresses the overriding importance of maintaining emotional steadiness, gently reminding the imaginary participants that the transition into prosperity brings its own unique set of profound responsibilities. The host's concluding message emphasizes that the successful navigation of this entire journey, whether literal or symbolic, requires profound clarity, absolute calm, and strong self-control, concluding the story with a sense of grounded preparation. Within this overarching fictional scenario, the purported analysts are predicting that a successfully revalued Iraqi dinar would rapidly and significantly boost the nation's gross domestic product, GDP. This currency revaluation is said to attract a flurry of foreign companies eager to secure high-value contracts in key sectors like construction, energy infrastructure, technology development, NT, and banking services. A stronger, more stable national currency in this context symbolizes a stronger, more stable Iraq, which in turn would stabilize regional trade dynamics and greatly encourage the flow of necessary long-term international investment, signaling a new chapter of economic growth and diplomatic relevance. The fictional narrative suggests that the United States, within the logic of this story, also stands to benefit significantly from this currency shift, reportedly gaining increased returns on its past strategic investments in the region and acquiring new economic leverage in vital oil and trade partnerships. In this imagined, transformative moment, Iraq's economic rise is portrayed not as an isolated event, but as a key catalyst for broader, positive global economic growth and stability. This interconnectedness adds weight to the event, suggesting that the entire world benefits from Iraq's economic strength and stability in the region. The host uses this reflection to bring the entire narrative full circle, gently reminding the listeners that this journey was never solely about the pursuit of money. It was instead fundamentally about vision, faith, and the profound courage required to believe in a nation's eventual recovery from decades of hardship. The act of choosing to stand with Iraq by holding its currency is framed as a potent symbol of belief in renewal after a period of intense struggle and uncertainty. The final reflection emphasizes the universal theme that even the longest, darkest night must eventually yield to the dawn. Within the powerful context of this story, tonight represents that long-awaited historical transition into a transformative millionaire morning. Bank insiders, within the context of this fictional scenario, are reported to have confirmed that the theoretical new rates are now fully loaded into their systems, but are being held under a strict hold and release protocol. This protocol is said to keep the new figures dormant until all global settlements, which typically finalize between the hours of 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. local time, are complete, thereby inspiring the narrative's recurring phrase, Millionaire Morning. The story suggests that by the first light of dawn, the audience may finally begin to see official public confirmations from international banks or the Central Bank of Iraq, effectively closing the final, long-running chapter of this monumental speculative waiting game that has dominated these communities for years. The host closes this chapter of the fictional narrative with a note of sincere gratitude, paying tribute to those who demonstrated exceptional resilience and held on to their belief throughout years of gnawing doubt and constant external criticism. This moment is explicitly portrayed within the story as the hard-earned result of persistent resilience, rather than mere random luck or chance. Listeners are powerfully encouraged to look in the mirror tomorrow morning and recognize their own strength of character, and to commit to using their potential future blessings wisely and with the utmost integrity and purpose. The fictional outro concludes with a final message of hope, sincere encouragement, and the firm promise of a massive, long-awaited new beginning rising rapidly on the horizon.